And
Well,
now it's indeed a pleasure for me to introduce my colleague who really, frankly, needs no introduction. Most popular fraternity amongst the students, fondly known as ADZ, Abhishek Sir, Abhishek Zavre. We have so many doubts regarding value investing, growth investing. I mean, it's just like a normal question for a kid: Superman or a Batman, and we want both. So how do we make a prudent decision or a wise decision? Please help us through, and we really look forward to your session. Over to you, Abhishek.
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Amruta. Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you.
So, as Amruta has rightly introduced the topic, it's basically a decision between Batman or Superman, or maybe right now Republicans versus Democrats, or maybe Congress versus BJP. Like whatever political debate you start, the, the heat involved in the political debate and the heat involved in the value investing and growth investing is going to be more or less similar. I'm going to present some wonderful data insights to begin up with, because last 5-6 months it has been a roller coaster ride for the Indian markets, going up. Let's say after the tax rate cut last year in September 2019, markets shoot up. Then after the budget and the coronavirus, then again it went down. Again it has come up. So a lot of investors have got extremely nervous. They are not able to understand or digest what has happened with the market. So just few slides to present on that thought process first. Why investing are financial assets or financialization of savings? As Sri Vikas Jain was mentioning, the financialization of savings is very important. The custody value of equity plus debt holdings is much more than the bank deposits now. And that is a very interesting number to look at. So why financialization of savings is important? I'm just presenting one or two opportunities or slides, and then I'll come down to the value investing. Two important numbers. So let me just share a presentation. I hope you should be able to see it now, right? So, right, you will be able to get it. So this is a very, very important slide for everyone to understand, whether you are an existing investor or you are going to be an investor in the future. ये बहुत important है. $2 trillion to $5 trillion economy. Now this 5 trillion, some people may associate with the promise that government gave, and now will it be fulfilled or not? I'm not interested in the government promise. Look at the raw data. If I look at the other countries in the world in terms of nominal GDP, this is a nominal GDP. Nominal GDP is in terms of current market price. So right now, this particular year, we may be touching around $2.5 trillion nominal GDP, this FY 2021. But once an economy has touched a $2 trillion, how much time does it take to go to the $5 trillion? Roughly, I looked at some other countries. China did it in time of just 5 years, in 2004 to 2009, on the back of the contract manufacturing or on the huge manufacturing base that the China got. So China just took 5 years. Manufacturing kiya unhone. Main reason in China was manufacturing. USA took 11 years, $2 trillion to $5 trillion, way back in 1977. Japan took 8.5 years, way back in 1978. So USA and Japan achieved it much earlier, but they took a much longer period at that point of time, because those were much matured economies even then in 1977. Japan took 8.5, USA took 11, China took 5. India has already hit the nominal GDP of $2 trillion in 2015. So the question is how much time it will take. Government had promised it 2025. Now, obviously, 2025 looks difficult in the view of this pandemic. But even if we take, let's say, about 7-8 years, what is important to understand is, since independence till now, whatever the level of GDP that we are able to achieve in terms of nominal GDP level, that is going to be achieved in the next 8 years itself. I'm assuming 8 years. China took 5, I'm adding 3 grace years, like 3 grace days. अगले 8 साल में जो हम GDP में increase करेंगे, that will be equivalent to what GDP we are able to generate as a nation in the last 70 odd years. And with the reason why China did it was on manufacturing. And in my opinion, with the government's renewed focus or a nationalism, whatever you want to say, on Atmanirbhar Bharat, if this scheme gets implemented properly, my friend, the manufacturing sector can boost. Even if there is a 5% additional contribution that can come up from manufacturing, the ripple effect that it will have on the jobs, on the personal income or per capita income is going to be much bigger. तो अगले 8 साल में जो अपॉर्चुनिटी है ना इंडिया के अंदर is going to be way bigger than what it was in past 70 years. So today we are at somewhere around 2.5 trillion. In my opinion, next 8 years will be making the more money or equal money in terms of national income what we made in last 70 years. So this is a time to live in this country. Forget about the political differences, forget about the other issues. If you're just looking at the investing and making money, it's the best time that we have got. So we need to basically identify the businesses which have got that economic moat. कौन सा बिजनेस प्रॉस्पर होगा अगर ये मैं 2.5 ट्रिलियन टू 5 ट्रिलियन डॉलर जाना है तो which kind of businesses, which kind of sectors are going to emerge? That is what we need to understand, and that is what I'm going to discuss in the subsequent slides. Just one disclaimer I would like to give: whatever the stocks I will discuss for the sake of example are only for educational purposes. Don't take an investment decision directly on the basis of the what I'm going to discuss. So it is more about a past rather than the future. So this is a ratio. This is from Motilal Oswal report that I took up. Market cap to GDP ratio. Shri Vikas Jain had mentioned the custody value. That custody value was including debt securities also. Here, debt securities are not included. It is only equity. So all the companies that are listed on the stock exchange, whether it is a BSE listed or NSE listed, if I take a market capitalization of all those companies and divide by the GDP of a country, that ratio for the FY20 on 31st March 20, due to the obviously COVID factor, it has come down to the levels where it was at the time of global financial crisis 2008. तो अगर आप 2009-8-9 का रेशियो देखोगे वो कितना है 55 है. Right now it is 56. So, it was 56 around 4-5 months ago. Now it has come up around, it is hovering around 65 to 70 right now. Market values keep on changing. What it tells you is many people say that the Indian markets are overvalued, they're out of the sync, like market and the market is not understanding the economic reality. Ground पे इतने सारे job losses हो चुके हैं, इतने सारे income level कम हो चुका है, ये lockdown है, यहाँ पर वो है, सब कुछ है, but तभी भी market आगे जा रहा है. The basic factor is market is a forward looking mechanism. It's a discounting mechanism. Market is not concerned about what happened in the last 6 months, how many job losses have taken place in the last 6 months. Market is looking at the opportunity ahead of us. Imagine what China did in terms of contract manufacturing to the global world. If that gets transferred to India, like day before yesterday, there was a summit between India and a European country, and Mr. Modi, Prime Minister Modi said that it is very important that we should have a diversified global supply chain. A large part of a global supply chain was dependent on China, and you know what happened due to the COVID. So world will try to diversify its supply chain, and India is in best spot. We are having a lot of reforms. Already we had reforms in the form of GST, which is getting settled. Demonetization has also played a good role. So reforms process, tax rates have come down. So a lot of reforms have taken place in India. These reforms will take a time to show the results. If that manufacturing, like India is trying to take more efforts to attract manufacturing entities from other countries to India, especially China to India. If that happens, my friend, our GDP will grow much faster than what it has grown in the past. So markets, don't be under the impression कि यार पिछले 6 महीने में इतने जॉब लॉसेस हो गए तो मार्केट ने डिक्लाइन होना चाहिए था. कुछ लोग तो ऐसे प्रेडिक्ट कर रहे थे कि निफ्टी भाई मतलब 4,000-5,000 पे निफ्टी जाएगा, दुनिया खत्म होने वाली है, ऐसा मार्केट खत्म हो जाएगा. It's not like that. Market is a forward looking mechanism. So you need to understand that it's not overvalued market. We are not in overvalued zone right now, definitely. Short term, yes, we may be overvalued, but long run, I don't see overvaluation because this is a very important indicator. Then this is the first insight that I wanted to give. So market cap to GDP ratio. Then the other very important thing that has happened in the last period last about 15 to 20 days, in case you are tracking the RBI's decisions during the COVID period. I just did some number crunching yesterday, and I could come up with these 2-3 slides. These are just interesting slides. Just look at it. This is what a strong Indian rupee can do to equity markets or equity valuations. So I'm basically comparing Indian rupee with reference to US dollar, INR per USD. So this is a data of last 18 years, which I could get it from RBI website, and I correlated with the various indices on the BSE website. So you can officially get the data from RBI website as well as the website of Bombay Stock Exchange. RBI website will direct you to the financial benchmarks, FBIL. So I have taken monthly periods. So last 18 years into 12 months, each month I had taken, and I found out the months in which Indian rupee has depreciated by more than 1%. The first row, Indian rupee depreciated by more than 1%. So like, let's say Indian rupee is right now about 73.8, and it goes to, let's say, about 74.2. So $1 is equal to 74.2. That is a depreciation in Indian rupee of 40 paisa. So if Indian rupee depreciates by more than 1% in 1 month, Sensex at annualized monthly change in the Sensex is not 20%, monthly change into 12, whatever average change happened in those months. So 18 into 12, number of months are there. So during those months, during those 216 months, there are certain months when the INR depreciated by more than 1%. So the decline in the Sensex, decline in the BSE mid cap or BSE small cap stocks, average multiplied by 12, that is annualized. Simple, it is not the CAGR, it is not compounded. 20% of the decline in the Sensex. So basically, it is a clear-cut positive correlation that you can find from this data between a stable INR and Indian markets. When it was 0 to 1%, minus 1% territory, Sensex has grown, appreciated by 18%. BSE mid cap is by 21%, and the small cap companies is about 22%. And you see the last one, when Indian rupee has appreciated by more than 1%, Sensex has given a return, simple returns, average 76% annualized. It is not CAGR, it's that particular period. Mid cap and small caps are even much higher. So what this slide tries to explain to you is, during the periods of stable Indian rupee, we have seen a good growth in the Indian equity values. फिर आप बोलेंगे सर आप अभी क्यों बोल रहे हो? Let me tell you a reason. In case you are tracking the news regularly, last around 10 to 15 days ago, RBI made a huge change in its stance. So far, what RBI used to do is, whenever there was a large outflow of US dollar from India to other countries, maybe because of equity valuations coming down or whatever the reason, RBI used to participate in the market. RBI used to participate, and RBI used to monitor the level. In India, we have the two imported commodities, that is crude oil and gold, which contribute largely to our current account deficit. So RBI, in order to control the depreciation of Indian rupee, RBI used to participate, or appreciation of Indian rupee, RBI used to participate in the market to maintain the particular level. So if you see the recent period, RBI has bought a huge amount of dollars. RBI's foreign currency reserves have increased substantially during the COVID period. आप बोलोगे क्यों सर, क्यों बढ़ गया ये? United States Fed Reserve has printed lot of dollars. That is expansion of, or monetization of deficit, that is technically called as. So US dollar is a reserve currency. US has printed a lot of money, and that is available at a very cheap rate in the US. US rate is around 0.25%. Official rate of the Fed is 0.25% per annum right now for borrowing. So lot of institutions, financial institutions, corporates have borrowed the money in USA, and that money has come down to India. Technically it is called as a carry trade. Carry trade करके concept है. तो बहुत सारा dollars India के अंदर आ गया, foreign currency inflow आ गया. Now when the dollar comes to India, INR appreciates. So during this COVID period, RBI wanted to help Indian exporters, so it did not allow the INR to appreciate too much. INR का जब appreciation होता है तो exporters को कम पैसा मिलता है. Like $1 is equal to 74 right now. If it becomes $1 equal to 72, IT companies or the pharmaceutical companies or any other companies which are doing exports, they'll be having a lesser realization. So RBI क्या करता था कि export promote करने के लिए RBI used to participate in the market. But 15 days ago, RBI indirectly gave a hint that we are going to control imported inflation. Imported inflation is in the nature of crude oil. If the Indian rupee depreciates, crude oil's landed cost in India in rupee terms increases. तो crude oil का India में prices control करने के लिए, and which affects the majority of commodities, RBI said we are going to let rupee appreciate. RBI ने officially बोला हुआ है. About 10-15 days you can find in various news reports. RBI के वेबसाइट पे भी है. तो जब इंडियन रूपी अप्रिशिएट होगा तो क्या हो सकता है? You have seen this slide. When Indian rupee has appreciated by more than 1%, equity markets have helped a lot. Multiple reasons are there. Those reasons are not a point of discussion, but I'm trying to tell you this is a very good time considering this particular change in stance of RBI. And if I analyze this data even more, I did split that into the small buckets. So if you look at the certain buckets when Indian rupee has appreciated, look at the March 2009 to April 2011. That was a period when after global financial crisis, Indian rupee had appreciated by 7%. Before that, it had depreciated by 20%. So when it appreciated by 7%, equity markets had a phenomenal returns of 39%, 52% in just matter of about those 2 years, right? So that is annualized returns. So it shows you a clear-cut relationship between the dollar and or INR USD and the Indian equity market. Now, this is not the only factor that you should look at, but I'm trying to tell you that there are changes in the stance that the RBI is making. So, ये change in stance could help you. And how to identify this particular trend? There is one index. You need to study more about this particular index, and that is US dollar index. DXY करके होता है. Investing.com, Bloomberg वगैरह चीजों पे आपको ये मिल जाएगा. Dollar index करके होता है. Dollar index is basically dollar's strength of the US dollar vis-a-vis multiple currencies. So euro has the largest weight. Euro, then Great Britain pound, Japanese yen are the currencies which carry the maximum weight against the US dollar. So if you see this US dollar index is in a range bound manner, and that is very good for the Indian economy. For the over the years, it has been in range bound manner, and if United States Fed Reserve keeps on printing the money, this dollar index is going to remain in a range bound manner, and that's very good for a stable INR. A stable INR means indirectly a good equity markets. So this is more of a time to tell you that there's a huge opportunity more than this dollar trade. If you look at the size of the economy, we have a huge potential. फिर अब ये potential का फायदा कैसे लेने का? Should I opt for a value investing approach or should I opt for a growth investing approach? That is what the discussion we are going to have now. So with this backdrop, let's proceed with this value investing. Rather than a meaning or anything typical definition, let us take a simple analogy. बहुत ही simple language में आपको बोलता हूँ. And I'm purposefully giving you an analogy of buying a television. Let's say तुमको TV खरीदना है 40 inch or 60 inch, whatever the size of the TV. You have option of buying it at a full price in the normal market conditions or buying during a sale. So maybe Flipkart or Amazon or any other seller comes out with the sale, you buy it during the sale. Now, whether you buy the TV during normal market or you buy during a sale, मुझे बोलो टीवी का साइज सेम रहेगा, सेम टीवी रहेगा, पिक्चर क्वालिटी भी सेम रहेगा, फर्क कहां पर है? ओनली डिफरेंस इज द प्राइस दैट यू पे फॉर. मतलब बेसिकली क्या है, अंडरलाइंग जो है वो टीवी का क्वालिटी हो गया या स्क्रीन साइज हो गया, सब कुछ सेम है, लेकिन प्राइस में फर्क पड़ गया. So there are some persons typically in Pune city, we call it as a Sadashiv Pethi, not to mean anyone, any disrespect to anyone, but with joke, you need to understand in India, people need to take a humor in a better test also. Like Sunil Gavaskar had made a comment a day before yesterday on one of the particular cricketer and entire India went into the madness. So with that particular respect, with due respect to all Sadashiv paid persons. So we say that particular mindset, I want to do a value buy in everything, and that is very good. So salute to those typical Punekars कि भाई मेरे को वैल्यू बाइंग करना है, तो सेम टीवी मेरे को मिलेगा लेकिन मेरे डिस्काउंट में जब चलेगा या सेल जब चलेगा तब जाके खरीदेगा. Now, if you apply this logic for buying electronic goods or maybe buying garments or maybe while buying a furniture items or daily household items, when you buy, you look for a discount. फ्लिपकार्ट का जब वो मेगा क्या whatever days they come up with, और चाइना में वो उनका सेल होता है ऐसे, चाइना में also they have one sale, December में they have some sale. So there Alibaba makes a huge sales during that particular day, something in China. So human mindset जो है वो जब commodity खरीदता है तब discount देखता है. So the same thing you can apply for a stocks. Instead of the television, you imagine a company share, maybe something like Nestle or HUL or maybe something like Reliance Industry or Infosys. While buying these stocks, the stock price can change even though the fundamental value or the fair value or underlying value of that particular company has remained same. और ये बहुत बार होता है, बहुत बार होता है. See, market price is a function of demand supply to a large extent. So market price fluctuations are not going to change the underlying value of the company. So the entire value investing concept is basically look at what the business offers to you, look at the underlying value, look at the fair value of the business, and look at the price that you are paying. Recently, ICICI Securities came up with the one wonderful term in the market, BAP, BAAP, buy at any price. They were commenting on one of the company, Avenue Supermart, and at that point of time, they came up with this new terminology, BAP, buy at any price. So value investing is not about buy at any price. Value investing is about growth at a reasonable price. I will be buying companies which are expected to grow decently, but at a reasonable price. So the entire thesis of value investing is based on GARP. I want to buy growth, but not at an exorbitant price, at a reasonable price. So because the underlying value that I'm going to get is going to remain more or less same. But the biggest problem is, you know what? That last line. In case of a TV, you know when the sale is available. Flipkart advertisement करता है कि हमारा sale available है, big billion days are here coming up, email भेजता है, SMS भेजता है, सब जगह पे campaign करता है. लेकिन स्टॉक मार्केट में जब सेल होता है तब ये कोई एडवर्टीजमेंट नहीं करता. NSDL एडवर्टीजमेंट नहीं करेगा, NSE एडवर्टीजमेंट नहीं करेगा, ब्रोकर एडवर्टीजमेंट नहीं करेगा कि भाई मार्केट में सेल चालू है, आओ और खरीदो स्टॉक्स. And another biggest problem is, on the contrary, the human mindset. There is a clear-cut relationship. Whenever the markets start falling down, investors, rather than buying the stocks, they go ahead and they start selling the stocks. So this is a problem with the stocks. Like, you don't come to know when the underlying value has gone below market price. So that's a problem. So we need to understand, how do you identify those value stocks or the value portfolios. I given some insights onto that in subsequent slides. So if you got a concept. So to just sum up, it is to buy the stocks that appear to be trading at a price lower than their fair value or intrinsic value or underlying value, whatever word you want to say. जो भी चीज का fair price है, like आप शॉप में गए, आपने एक टी शर्ट देखा या एक ट्राउजर देखा, आपको लगा यार ये चलो 1,500 का होना चाहिए या चलो 800 का होना चाहिए. And you go and look at the price tag and suddenly you find, oh, this is available at, let's say, 1,000 rupees only. You were willing to pay 1,500, like that. So this happens, current market price comes below the underlying value. This happens because of overreactions in the market. Market overreacts to good and the bad news. See, market is not a perfect place. Economics में जब आप सीखते हो तो लगता है कि आपको market is a perfect market, everyone has a rational information, everyone is a rational investor. वो है ना लिखने के टाइम पे बहुत सारे लोग irrational होते हैं. Like, there is irrationality. So that's why market overreacts for a good news as well as to the bad news. Like I remember an instance where India, Pakistan were involved in some kind of a battle on the border, and that has resulted into the stock of a company called the Page Industries falling down substantially during that particular period of time. Or at the time when the North Korea's leader had put up the missile, तो उस टाइम पे ना स्टॉक मार्केट बहुत गिर गया था और उसमें कुछ स्टॉक्स थे लाइक पेज इंडस्ट्रीज, HUL, दे हैड फॉलन डाउन सब्सटेंशियली. अब मुझे बोलो पेज इंडस्ट्री जो प्रोडक्ट बनाता है वो जॉकी है, अंडरगारमेंट्स. अब इंडिया पाकिस्तान का वॉर हो या ना हो, इट इज नॉट गोइंग टू मेक अ मटेरियल डिफरेंस इन द सेल्स ऑफ अंडरगारमेंट्स इन कंट्री or in the sales of basic daily consumables or staples, food products, FMCG products. But market overreacts. Reaction क्या होता है? Instant reaction is, अरे यार नहीं, कुछ तो डेंजरस हो गया. I remember this was the case on the surgical strike. जब सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक हुआ था किसी को मालूम ही नहीं था कि सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक का मतलब क्या होता है, एक्सेप्ट आर्मी पीपल. तो सर्जिकल स्ट्राइक हुआ, immediately market overreacted to a level that as if India and Pakistan have started a war. It was not the war against Pakistan, it was those terror launch pads which were being attacked by Indian army. बट सबको क्या लगा, वॉर शुरू हो गया, तो मार्केट ने ओवर रिएक्ट किया. ऐसे बहुत सारे इंस्टेंसेस आपको मिलेंगे वेयर मार्केट ओवर रिएक्ट्स टू सर्टन good news or a bad news. And what best time we have than the coronavirus, like March 2020, after the lockdowns, we had touched a bottom of around 7,300 in the Nifty or 7,500 in the Nifty. And from that point of time, you people would have seen the recovery. So that is a value investing. Try to wait for those points of time. Like if I to give an analogy of cricket, एक कोई बैट्समैन है ना, वो क्या करता है, एक बैट डिलीवरी का वेट करता है. लेट्स से कोई अच्छा बॉलर है, he just waits for a delivery to come up which is a full toss delivery or which is outside the off stump or outside the leg stump and you can hit easily. So जैसे बैट्समैन है ना, वो वेट करता है और वेट करने के बाद शॉट खेलता है. That is value investing. Wait for a reasonable price. Don't do BAP investing. Buy at any price. Go for GARP, growth at a reasonable price. And when you do this, you get basically a margin of safety. This entire concept of value investing has been wonderfully explained by the classic book. Many of you would have read it, The Intelligent Investor by Benjamin Graham and Dodd. These are the persons, basically teacher of Warren Buffett. So these are the persons who introduced this idea of the value investing, and they are Berkshire Hathaway or Warren Buffett has been sticking to this particular concept over the years. So this overreaction gives you opportunity. लेकिन अभी सबसे बड़ा प्रॉब्लम क्या है, मीनिंग तो भाई समझ गए हमको. हाउ डू यू आइडेंटिफाई फेयर वैल्यू ऑफ अ स्टॉक, कैसे निकालेंगे? लेट मी टेल यू, finding the fair value of stock is as complicated as finding the good bride or good groom or good spouse for a marriage. ऐसा कोई फैक्टर दे सकता है क्या? यहाँ पे बहुत सारे शादीशुदा लोग हो गए या the people who are trying to get married, you cannot give a list of factors कि भाई ये 10 फैक्टर ये तुम देखो तो तुमको अच्छा लड़का या अच्छा लड़की मिल जाएगा. नहीं हो सकता है ना ऐसे. So there is no list कि ये 10 फैक्टर तुम चेक करो, ये 5 फैक्टर चेक करो, तुमको परफेक्ट कैंडिडेट मिल जाएगा शादी के लिए. नहीं हो सकता है. ऐसा ही यहाँ पर है. I cannot give you any list of factors on the basis of you can confidently calculate a fair value. However, whatever research has taken place or whatever the great thought process has been shared by many investors, legendary investors, there are some points which I think are important. So I'm giving those factors. This is a very important slide. Look at this. What drives the value? This is what I understood after a lot of spending a lot of time in the market. Lot of time. What are the real drivers of the value? There are three broad factors which are identified. See, आपको देखने के लिए बहुत ज्यादा फैक्टर्स मिलेंगे. लिस्ट अगर मैं बनाऊंगा ना तो मैं आपको ऐसे 100 फैक्टर्स का लिस्ट दे दूंगा और मैं बोलूंगा देखो ये तो फैक्टर लिखा था मैंने, हाँ तुमने वो देखा ही नहीं. वो मतलब पॉइंट नहीं है. तुमको अगर ब्रॉड लेवल पे अगर एनालिसिस करना है, फंडामेंटल एनालिसिस करना है, तो वैल्यू इन्वेस्टिंग के लिए फर्स्ट लुक एट द अपॉर्चुनिटी साइज ऑफ दैट सेक्टर और दैट पर्टिकुलर कंपनी. कि भाई अपॉर्चुनिटी है क्या? मोट, वी कॉल इट इज टेक्निकली मोट. अपॉर्चुनिटी है या नहीं है? लाइक pharmaceutical sector, if you see Indian pharma or globally all pharmaceutical companies after the COVID-19, they are being re-rated. Prior to the COVID-19, for last 4-5 years, Indian pharmaceutical companies had not given any kind of return because of US Food and Drugs Authority had put up a lot of sanctions on Indian companies. Plus in India also we had got a lot of pricing regulations. So there is a separate authority that government had created for the purpose of price regulation for medicines and the drugs. So pharma sector did nothing. But now, sudden of all, pharma sector has come out of nowhere. So there is a huge opportunity size. Or take an example of an online education market or edtech companies or fintech companies, edutech companies or fintech companies. There is a huge, huge opportunity size. Or take an example of a betting, like whatever IPL is going on right now, Dream 11, or maybe that those other betting companies. Or it is not betting technically. It's basically a game of skills rather than a game of chance. So opportunity size, hey, that's why the investments are getting attracted. So you need to identify a business which has an opportunity size. Okay. So typically when I look at it, FMCG sector has a huge opportunity size. Agri-business companies or agri-input commodities, or they have a huge opportunity. So find out the businesses or sectors which have got a huge opportunity. I'll just give you an example. Around in the month of July, somewhere in the month of July, I don't remember the exact date, I'd put up the one tweet about the opportunity of one of the company. This is just for example, not for investment at all. In India, we have approximately 80 lakh registered persons for a GST and paying a taxes. Now, these are the traders, service providers, whatever. So majority of the traders during this COVID period or even prior to the COVID period, they need to find a marketplace where they can sell their produce or they can find a customers. So there is one platform company, IndiaMart Intervesh Limited. IndiaMart Intervesh Limited is the name of the company. It's a very old company. Way back in 1995 it was started. It got listed recently in 2018. But this company was making a good amount of profits with just approximately 1,50,000 paying customers. 1,50,000 traders. See, basically, IndiaMart is B2B portal, business to business portal. So it's basically useful for wholesalers or stockist or dealers network kind of thing, or a small manufacturers. So it was having 1.5 lakh customers. And with 1.5 lakh, it was extremely profitable. Extremely profitable. With 1.5 lakh customers, whatever the average charges of around 40-50,000 rupees per annum that IndiaMart used to levy, it was a profitable company. Now, what I need to look at it, India has 80 lakh registered GST customers. And this company had just 1 lakh B2B portal. There were not too many B2B portals in India. There are hardly any B2B portals in India which just provide the information about the buyers. Obviously, market will be crowded market over a period of time. But अपॉर्चुनिटी का साइज देखो ना तुम, 80 लाख लोग रजिस्टर्ड है, टैक्स भर रहे हैं ऑफिशियली. पैरेलल इकोनॉमी जो है वो तो छोड़ दो, वो कितना है क्या है भगवान जाने. बट 80 लाख लोग टैक्स भर रहे थे, ट्रेड कर रहे थे. उनके लिए जो प्लेटफॉर्म चाहिए था उसमें से सिर्फ 1 लाख लोग इंडिया मार्ट को यूज कर रहे थे. ऑब्वियसली नॉट एवरीवन विल बी हैप्पी विद द इंडिया मार्ट सर्विसेज. It's not possible to satisfy every customer, but it told you the opportunity size. It told you the opportunity size. But at that point of time, due to the COVID, everyone said, "अरे यार ये तो मतलब बंद हो जाएगा." But this was an electronic platform, B2B. Opportunity size was huge. Plus, for expansion, they don't have to invest any further money. They have to just create a platform, software entity has to be created and go on acquiring new customers. My friend, the stock I'd recommended at that particular point of time, there are some students from the intermediate batch who had made the money also. It was at 2,000 rupees at that particular point of time. And now it went up to about 5,000 once the management said that COVID has not affected us at all in terms of profitability, in terms of cash flows as such. So you need to look at the size of opportunity. Another company like platform company, InfoEdge, Naukri.com आपने सुना होगा तो InfoEdge है. InfoEdge owns this Naukri.com, plus it has got an investment in the Policy Bazaar. तो आप वहां पर अपॉर्चुनिटी देखो ना. हमारे कंट्री में जो जॉब अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट है वो अभी तक बहुत ज्यादा अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट रेट है. सो देयर विल लॉट ऑफ पर्संस हु विल बी सीकिंग द जॉब. देयर विल लॉट ऑफ एम्प्लॉयर्स हु विल बी trying to reduce their recruitment cost. So Naukri.com has been a cash cow for the InfoEdge. तो Naukri.com से जितना भी पैसा था उससे उन्होंने क्या किया, नया जोमेटो में कुछ इन्वेस्टमेंट किया हुआ है, कुछ पॉलिसी बाजार में इन्वेस्टमेंट किया हुआ है. सो दे आर बेटिंग ऑन सम न्यू एज बिजनेसेस. तो वहां पर आपको अपॉर्चुनिटीज देखना है. Out of my total population, if I have let's say almost 20, 30 crores who are unemployed or who are seeking a job on a regular basis, there's an opportunity. And Naukri.com has that particular patronage. So आपको example के form में दे रहा हूँ, आपको you need to find out the business or sector which has got a huge opportunity size. That is number one. That is what is going to drive the value. I just gave few examples of platform-based companies. तो इनमें फायदा क्या हुआ? I have opportunity. I can expand my sales. I can increase my profitability without making any additional capital investment because I have a platform with me. Whereas a company which is a real estate company or an infrastructure company, if they want additional sales, they need additional working capital, additional machinery, additional labor force. So they need to make a deployment of additional capital. तो मैंने क्या देखा कि भाई अपॉर्चुनिटी है, सेक्टर का ग्रो करने का कैपेबिलिटी है, and then other factors obviously. This is not the only factor. In subsequent slides, the factors are going to come. First, opportunity. Number two, whether that company or that particular sector has a competitive advantage. आप बोलेंगे सर इसको मेजर कैसे करेंगे? सिंपल बेसिक है. डिफरेंस बिटवीन व्हाट रिटर्न ऑन कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड ROCE, कैपिटल एम्प्लॉयड पे जो कंपनी ROCE कमाता है माइनस द इंटरेस्ट रेट और कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल, मोर और लेस. सो इंटरेस्ट रेट फॉर अ डेट, इक्विटी का कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल अलग आएगा. यू टेक अ वेटेड एवरेज कॉस्ट ऑफ कैपिटल. This is basically trying to say whether company is earning more than the cost of the funds. Cost of capital is expectations of investors. Are you able to earn more than your cost of capital? That is a competitive advantage. Because if you are earning equal to the cost of capital itself, how are you going to create the wealth? Wealth creation will happen only when you beat the expectations of investors. So the expectations are cost of capital. So competitive advantage है क्या? और अगर है तो लास्ट पॉइंट जो है कितने साल तक वो competitive advantage expected है. It's not that a company will be able to deliver the advantage for next 20 years, next 50 years, next 100 years. ऐसा तो possible नहीं है. तो कितने साल तक वो advantage रहेगा? तो that you need to consider. राइट. सो ये तीन फैक्टर्स जो है वो अगर आप कंसीडर करोगे तो आपको वैल्यूएशन मिलेगा. आप बोलेंगे कैसे सर, फेयर वैल्यू कैसे कैलकुलेट करेंगे? सिंपल. इन सीए कोर्स यू वुड लर्न डिस्काउंटेड कैश फ्लो टेक्निक, DCF, which is basically value of a business is a present value of a future cash flows. तो अपॉर्चुनिटी कितना है, अपॉर्चुनिटी बड़ा है तो अपॉर्चुनिटी साइज को लेके आप कैश फ्लोज एस्टिमेट कर सकते हो और उनका फिर डिस्काउंटिंग करो. So you have a abnormal period of growth which is a competitive advantage period. So next 4 years, next 5 years, you could be having a exponential growth and then growth could saturate down. So those 4-5 years of exponential growth and then the nominal growth equal to the GDP, and discount that and try to find a fair value and then compare that fair value with actual market price. So those are the factors which are going to drive the returns the most. Opportunity size, the biggest one, and are you able to deliver excess returns? I'll just present another slide where I done the it's taken from a research report in the US. Just a second. Here it is. Look at the first point. This first point is, what are the factors that have created the returns in the stocks? This is a research report. If anyone wants to read it, it's available on the website called the ResearchGate, but you need to be an academic researcher registered with them. It's a report called as the emergence and sustainability of abnormal profits. The emergence and sustainability of abnormal profits. This report is by research report is by Porters and Anita Magan. She's an Indian lady married to an US fellow. So they've done a lot of research in the US stocks and they identified what are the factors that drive the returns over about a 30-year period of time. So look at the factors. 3%. This is US market. This is not obviously Indian market, but more or less you can apply the rationale out here. The point I'm trying to say is the year in which the company is formed is not really the driving factor. Like we call it first mover advantage. हमने पहले सबसे पहले शुरुआत में चालू किया, इसका मतलब हमको बहुत ज़्यादा रिटर्न मिलेगा. Not necessary. There are a lot of companies which are a first mover advantage. By that logic, State Bank of India बहुत first mover advantage है, सबसे पुराना बैंक है अपने कंट्री में. But wealth, shareholders का wealth create किया क्या? नहीं. So don't look at just the year of inception. That's just a 3% factor. The two critical factors that drive the returns for the investors is the industry in which you run, that is the opportunity size, and the management specific, the quality of a management, that is growth at a reasonable price. So those factors is what you should be looking at when I talk about an opportunity. So you find out the fair value using these three broad factors and then apply various mathematical techniques. There are some other parameters also to which are used to do the fair valuation. DCF approach is what I told you. It's basically discounting of the future cash flows at expected rate of return. Chartered accountants or the CA students are well versed with the DCF approach. Your whole life we are being doing a DCF. Then the sum of the parts analysis. This is very important for the companies which are conglomerate. बहुत सारे कंपनीज है जो अलग अलग सेक्टर्स में ऑपरेट कर रहे हैं, अलग अलग टाइप के बिजनेसेस रन कर रहे हैं. Take an example of Reliance Industries. So it's into telecommunication, it is into retail, it is into the oil and chemicals space. So each business needs to be valued by using separate parameters. So sum of the parts मतलब each part को आप अलग अलग valuation करो और फिर उसका total लेके देखो. You will find out in many cases companies are undervalued. मतलब इंडिविजुअल चार पार्ट्स है मेरे. अनदर एग्जांपल इज आईटीसी, इंडियन टोबैको कंपनी. इट इज इन एफएमसीजी, इट इज इन सिगरेट्स, इट इज इनटू द होटल्स बिजनेस, इट इज इनटू द एग्रीकल्चरल बिजनेस. सो डिफरेंट डिफरेंट बिजनेस है. हर एक बिजनेस का आप अलग अलग तरीके से वैल्यूएशन करो और उनका टोटल लो, सम ऑफ द पार्ट्स. और वो सम ऑफ द पार्ट्स का वैल्यू जो आएगा and actual value, you will find out the differences many a times. And another example could be a Bajaj Holdings. There is a company called the Bajaj Holdings. So it owns some stake in Bajaj Auto. It has some stake in the general insurance space. It has some stake in the life Bajaj Allianz life insurance space. They got some stake in the NBFC, Bajaj Finance or Bajaj Finser. So it's a conglomerate giving you exposure to the different companies. But if you see the value of that holding company, Bajaj Holdings, is not equal to the various parts, some of the parts. So you could spot an opportunity. Like, I'm not, please remember, these are not investment recommendations. These are just some examples I'm trying to give so that you can correlate at a later point of time. So some of the parts valuation you can use. Price to book value ratio, price to earning ratio. These are very new basic ratios which are used for valuation. Traditional ones, book value, price as a multiple of book value, price as a multiple of earnings. But a P ratio, in my personal opinion, is a misleading one. Many a times it should not be used in isolation, and there is a much better ratio than the PE called the PE growth ratio. It is basically PE ratio divided by expected growth rate in the profitability. PE ratio is the price upon earnings. PEG is PE ratio upon growth rate. If the PE ratio is PEG, my mistake, PEG is less than 1, it is basically an indication of undervalued company. And PEG is more than 1, it is an indication of overvalued company. Price to sales ratio or enterprise value is equity plus debt to sales ratio. So look at these ratios of that particular company, compare them with the industry, and then you will come to know whether the company is a value buy, bargain buy or not. फ्री कैश फ्लो मल्टीपल, फ्री कैश फ्लो कितना जनरेट हो रहा है वो चेक करो फ्री कैश फ्लो पे बेसिस पे. एंटरप्राइज वैल्यू टू इबिट्टा, ऑपरेटिंग प्रॉफिट बेसिकली इबिट्टा. So operating profit and enterprise value, find out that multiple. And in many cases, to find a fair value, you need to use sector specific multiples. Like in case of IT companies or technology driven companies, valuations are done on the basis of number of subscribers or number of users. In case of a steel manufacturing company, it could be a value per ton of steel or per kilowatt of electricity produced in case of electricity producer companies. So you need to use some sector specific techniques. तो ऐसे करके आप वैल्यूएशन करो. कोई ब्रॉड फैक्टर का लिस्ट नहीं दे सकता कि भाई ऐसा ये 10 फैक्टर से वो चेक करो ना. So try to identify fair value using various techniques and compare that. Now this is a broad decision matrix that I have been following for some good period of time. It's a broad factors. I put up them in the 4 compartments. It has helped me a lot to screen down or the filter down the stocks or whatever investments you make. And I given the detailed explanation of this on the subsequent slides. So let me give you broadly. First 4 category of factors you should look at. First, look for a leadership. That sector should be able to grow at 3 times, 7 times, 10 times in the time to come. So basically, I talked about opportunity size, leadership. First, company should be a market leader. You try to identify a sector which is expected to grow exponentially, and then look for the leader. Don't look for the number 2 player or number 3 player. Stick with the leader. If you understood a particular sector, you are believing in a sector, stick with the leader. And that particular company must have bargaining power, not the customers. The company as a seller, if it has a bargaining power, nothing like it. Nothing like it. There are many companies which where the seller has a bargaining power than the customer. So look for a leadership sector, look for opportunity businesses. Number 2, what you should avoid. That is also important. क्या नहीं करना चाहिए? Avoid companies with excessive debt. Except financial companies. For financial companies, debt is mandatory. You cannot do a banking company or NBFC without a debt. But avoid high debt companies, avoid government companies. This is my personal view from a long-term investment perspective. Short-term, yes, you can do that. That is called the momentum investing. We are not discussing momentum investing. Value investing and growth investing are more long-term in nature rather than the short-term. The trading is momentum. So government companies, you can trade for momentum, but marrying with those companies or taking a long-term stance is something that I don't like personally, because see, government of the day changes, and government companies, they're not in general looking for rewarding shareholders. They are looking for more of political ambitions or political things. So I try to avoid government companies for a long-term investment. Try to avoid the companies where the price action is weak. Price is a lot, tells you a lot. आप बोलेंगे सर कहाँ से price action identify करेंगे? There is a wonderful tool. I am using a paid version of it, but it should be available in the free domain also. William O'Neill करके एक बंदा है US में. He has got a company called the Market Smith. So if you can use the Market Smith app, it tells you about the price action on during a particular period. Because if the price action means also if there is a huge decline in the price, you need to identify the reason. Just because there's a huge decline, you just can't go and start buying the stock. So look at the price action, and if the price action has been indicating the weakness, don't enter into such kind of stocks. Rather than buying the stocks on a 52-week low, try to prefer buying a good quality stocks at a 52-week high, because that is these companies will keep on making a new 52-week high. Like India Mart since last 2-3 months has been making a new 52-week high. So in a month they have made a new 52-week high almost 10 days. So 1/3 of the time it was making new high. So look for a strong price action. So Market Smith is an app, or it is called the CAN-SLIM methodology. CAN-SLIM is an acronym for certain factors. So based on that, you can come to know. Then moat and management. Moat I talked about. Management, look for companies or promoters with a quality. चोर promoter नहीं चाहिए अपने को. India में this is a big problem. Many promoters look for their personal wealth rather than the shareholder wealth creation. This is an extremely unfortunate. Like there's so many promoters, chore promoters बोलते हैं इनको. Chore, completely chore promoters. They look for their own wealth creation over the shareholders wealth creation. So preferably try to look for companies where the management is independent from the promoters or the owners, like HDFC Bank. There's no single individual promoters. There is a professional management. And look at the way Aditya Puri has delivered the returns. And in comparison, the other private sector bank, Yes Bank, for example. So look for a quality management. Look for the management pedigree, we call it as. And then obviously financials, numbers don't lie. You look for a high ROCE and high ROE business. You need a companies which are able to generate high ROCE and high ROE. Something ROCE, something upwards of 15%. ROE something upwards of 20%. It's good to look at it. High ROE is possible because of leverage being used. Growth rates. You must find a company which is able to grow at a higher than the nominal GDP growth rate, or at least equal to the nominal GDP growth rate. So like India's GDP growth rate, forget about this particular year, 7-8% is what we have, is a real GDP growth. Add to that something around 4-5% of inflation number, 11-12% is what we have as a nominal GDP growth. But I expect that to come down because inflation numbers will cool off in time to come. So 10-11% is what nominal GDP growth we have. So identify companies which are able to grow their sales at that rate or higher than that rate. Sales, operating profit, and then your net profit. Those numbers should be able to grow at that more than that rate. And last one, very important. This is the important lesson that I understood from one of the education sector company only, where I'd lost some money. This is a lesson that I learned after losing the company. Core Education करके company था, and Educomp करके company आया था. So I had invested in those two companies, and then I understood how these chore companies were. And there's one more in the education sector which had running the preschools. इसका नाम भूल गया मैं. ट्री हाउस करके company था. They had a huge preschool. तो मैंने वहाँ पे opportunity देखा, बच्चों का education देते थे, छोटे छोटे बच्चों का. Tree house. So मैं बोला यार, it's a huge opportunity in the market, and promoter was good initially and everything. But this company over a period of time started showing the operating profit, but the cash flow generation was not there. They had a debtors on their balance sheet. So they were booking the sales and creating a debtors. Now imagine a education company having a debtors on the balance sheet. कौन से स्कूल या कॉलेज या एकेडमिक इंस्टीट्यूशन में आपको फी पे किए बगैर एडमिशन मिलता है? डेटर है मतलब तुमने कस्टमर को सेल किया लेकिन पैसा रिकवर नहीं किया. टेल मी एन एजुकेशन इंस्टीट्यूशन वेयर you become the customer first and then thereafter you make a payment. नहीं होता ना. So look for a cash flow generation, your cash flow to operating profit. So that number should be about, the number that I'm keeping in my mind is around 75 to 80%. But strong companies in India make upwards of 90%. So 75 to 80% of your operating profit must be converted into the cash. अब बोलेंगे सर बाकी किधर गया सर? Working capital के लिए लगता है पैसा कुछ. So cash flow should be generated. So these are the factors that you should look for while picking up the stocks in the value investment. So how do we implement it? ये चलो बड़ी बड़ी बातें हो गई. इसको implement कैसे करेंगे? तो एक screener है. मैंने ये data मैंने ये actually किया हुआ है. Now this is not possible at an individual level, but some chartered accountants who have got a subscription to a capital line transfer pricing के लिए use करते होगे आप लोग या अलग अलग reports के लिए. तो capital line से database लेके मैंने ये screening किया है. You will be surprised with the results. I done it about a year ago, not during this particular period. But look at the broad factor to screen. See, बहुत सारा companies है. Actively traded companies are around 3,800 to 4,000 companies in India. Now you can't go and buy every company. So, or you can't track every company. So how do I filter down the stocks? So you put certain criteria. So first criteria could be, I want a company which has a history of 10 years plus in general, or some companies which have got recent 10 years plus, not listing history. The company should have the history. Like otherwise, company like Avenue Supermart, you will never look at it because it has a listing history of just 3 years. So you look at a company with a history of 10 years, whether it is listed space or unlisted, doesn't matter. Company should be able to generate a ROC of higher than 15%. आप बोलेंगे सर कहाँ से लाए 15%? See, basically I want cost of debt plus cost of equity, weighted average. If I look at it, 14-15% is the weighted average cost of capital for various companies in the Nifty index. So I want a company which generates a ROCE consistently, not in one particular year, consistently, upwards of cost of capital. Then only you can create economic value. We have a wonderful concept called economic value added. So you can generate that. Then the cash flow to EBITDA should be higher than 50%. I look at 75 to be on a safer side. Debt equity ratio should be lower than 1.5x. Preferably debt-free company. Look at promoter stake should be higher than the 40%. आप बोलेंगे क्यों सर? हम इसको बोलते हैं skin in the game. जो बंदा कंपनी को चला रहा है खुद अपने कंपनी में इन्वेस्ट कर रहा है क्या? Or there is a wonderful advertisement of a Motilal Oswal right now. They're showing like a restaurant owner. I am running a restaurant. So am I eating in my own restaurant, or am I bringing the food from home? मैं खुद रेस्टोरेंट चला रहा हूं और मैं मेरे रेस्टोरेंट का खाना नहीं खाता, मैं घर से खाना लेके आता या किसी दूसरे रेस्टोरेंट से खाना लेके आता, नहीं चलेगा ना. तो प्रोमोटर्स के पास स्किन इन द गेम है, उनका पैसा इन्वेस्टेड है क्या? प्रोमोटर्स प्लेज नील. Promoters should not pledge their shares for their other ventures. Otherwise, this will be a big problem. If promoters pledge the shares, like Yes Bank ke case mein, Rana Kapoor had pledged the shares for the ventures of his daughters. His daughters had doing some business, and for that he had pledged his own shares, promoters shares, and that resulted into a huge decline in the price of the share. So you get lost. Promoter is doing some other business, and if he goes wrong in the other business, you suffer in your own investment. So try to avoid such kind of companies. and try to look for a company's upwards of market cap of 500 crore and above. So that's basically around mid cap, small cap space. So a large cap also you can look at it. So good market cap filter. Then look at a sector filter. Sector should be able to grow at 8 to 10% at least. Sector as a whole, that sector should have pricing power and try to go for a non-cyclical sector. अगर ये filters मैंने लगाए ना, तो देखो ये wonderful graph आ गया. Left hand side of this pyramid is the 5-year returns. I have not annualized it. This is taken from Capital Line for the particular. This is 5 years as on 9th of August 2019. Around 1 year ago, this exercise was carried out. So 2014 to 2019 is the time period. So in between demonetization आ गया, GST का implementation आ गया, government change आ गया. So multiple factors have been covered, or US elections आ गए. So multiple factors have been covered. So out of 4,850 companies, right hand side is a company, right hand side of the reverse pyramid. So total listed companies are 4850. They have given returns of approximately 58%. These are not annualized. 58% for 5 years. Then if I put up the filters, as I'm putting the filter, number of companies are getting reduced, but the returns are increasing. As I put additional filter, companies देखो कम होते जा रहा है, and returns are increasing. What does it mean is if you apply the filters for finding the fair value, you can start getting a better companies. And if I apply all those filters, I am left with only 180 companies. 180 कंपनी रह गए सिर्फ मेरे पास, और उनका रिटर्न 206% था as compared to for the entire universe. So apply the filters, right? That is one part. Then once you apply this screening filter, what do we do? Numbers will not tell you entire story. You need to go beyond the numbers. So look for the background of the promoters, look for the other group companies of these promoters, related party transactions are there or not, because there are so many promoters who do some related party transactions. I'll just to give an example, there is one company which I was studying recently, Manorama Industries karke ek hai. It makes a cocoa butter which is used in your Cadbury or Ferrero or Shea seeds hota hai. So it's a wonderful product. Company makes a wonderful product, kick-ass product है. मतलब तुम अगर research करोगे तो खतरनाक product है. Stock price has gone up by about 4 times during the lockdown. 200 से 800 रुपए पे शेयर चला गया. 200 रुपए से 800 रुपए पे. So it's a wonderful growth. Company is too good. Company is too good. मतलब in terms of profitability, in terms of product innovation, in terms of customer. Mondelez है, Cadbury वाला जो maker है, Mondelez उनका customer है. फिर personal care में L'Oreal, वो जो ladies वाला आता है, L'Oreal Paris, वो जो है वो customer उनका है. Customers अच्छे, सब कुछ अच्छा है. So when you looked at the financials, अरे यार आपको picture दिखता है, क्या मस्त movie है यार, मतलब बढ़िया. But when I went behind, मतलब when I started doing the more and more analysis, go beyond the numbers, the promoter, Mr. Saraf, was debarred from the participating in the markets for some issues earlier, about 10-15 years ago. Promoter and his father, they were debarred from the market. And then how did he bypass the regulations? He made his wife to be managing director, and the promoter himself is just president of the company now. He is taking an employment position, and his wife has been made a managing director of the company, and they're managing the show. Now, what it tells you, product is good, everything is good, but when you do some cross checks, it tells you that in the past, chalo, they have made a mistake. I'm not saying that they will they are making a mistake right now or they're doing something wrong. No, in past, the background is something dangerous. Like company took certain decisions which were against the interest of the investors and whole, but they're in the interest of the promoters at that point of time. तो ये आपको प्राइस एक्शन देखोगे, फाइनेंशियल्स देखोगे तो बहुत अच्छा लगता है, लेकिन जब आप बैकग्राउंड चेक करते हो, बियॉन्ड नंबर्स जाते तो आपको ये छोटी छोटी चीजें समझ में आएगी. Then I came to know about some more flaws in the let's say governance, but product extremely innovative product. Cocoa butter करके एक चीज होता है, and that basically government has now permitted 5% of that cocoa butter to be used while making chocolates, and that percentage is expected to increase. तो चॉकलेट के अंदर थोड़ा मिक्सिंग होता है, कोको बीन्स के साथ कोको बटर का मिक्सिंग होता है, उसमें टेक्निकल प्रोडक्ट है. इट्स अ गुड प्रोडक्ट, गुड इनोवेशन दैट दे हैव डन, बट बैकग्राउंड चेक सजेस्ट दैट यार मैनेजमेंट में थोड़ा सा दिक्कत है. फाइनेंशियल्स अच्छा है, प्रोडक्ट अच्छा है, अपॉर्चुनिटी साइज भी बहुत बड़ा है, क्योंकि पर्सनल केयर में यूज होता है, चॉकलेट्स में यूज होता है, चॉकलेट वगैरह ऐसा चीज है जो खत्म नहीं होने वाला है. So group, look at that transactions, look at related party transactions, look at equity dilution, whether the promoters or other persons are willing to dilute the equity, they are looking for reducing their stake. A classic example on equity dilution right now, you will find out there is one company into the medical equipment sector, GMM Fodler. It is PF, not F. GMM Fodler. Recently, this particular stock was on a dream run from 1,000 rupees level to around 5,000 rupees level. And sudden of all, promoters say that they want to dilute the stake and they're coming up with the offer for sale. That offer for sale is going on right now or will start in a matter of this week. The stock price came down from 5,000 rupees level to 3,500 rupees level. So if there is a dilution expected to come up, dilution मतलब promoters उनका stake कम करना चाहते हैं, तो what it does is it increases supply in the market, supply of the shares in the market. हम उसको supply overhang बोलते हैं. तो अगर supply overhang substantially expected है, आप बोलेंगे सर आपको पता कहां से चलेगा? Look for the private equity investors in the company, look for the promoter stake in the company, and especially if you have private equity investors, they are not married to the company, they want exit at some point of time. So PE investors, look when they entered, look when they are planning to exit, because the PE funds normally are transparent about their entry and exit. They have some fund period, like India Mart इंटरवेश में भी एक इन्वेस्टर थे, उनका फंड पीरियड जो था वो अबाउट 4 years था. या अभी कैम्स का जो आईपीओ आया, डे आफ्टर टुमारो इट इज गोइंग टू गेट लिस्टेड. कैम्स के आईपीओ में एक पी फंड है, एडवेंट इंटरनेशनल. सो एडवेंट इंटरनेशनल नॉर्मली हैज टिपिकल साइज ऑफ 4 to 5 years इन इंडिया और एनीवेयर इन द वर्ल्ड. सो कैम्स को उन्होंने इन्वेस्ट किया था 4-5 साल पहले, तो अब वो उनको एग्जिट चाहिए. सो एट दैट पॉइंट ऑफ टाइम, so if you are going to buy the stocks when promoter or the PE fund is expected to exit in a next 2-3 months or next some period of time, it will increase the supply overhang immediately and the stock price is expected to fall. It is but natural, absolutely natural, that if the supply increases, the price has to fall. Even the fundamentals are intact. So don't buy before that supply comes to the market. Let that supply come to the market, let that supply be absorbed, and thereafter you look for buying the stock after that equity dilution is over from the promoters stake. Look for ROE trend and the capital expenditure, look for cash flow generations, working capital cycle with the peers, change in the management, conference call के transcripts पढ़ो, scalability of business देखो. ये सब factors देखने के बाद आपको stock identify करना पड़ेगा. And then after you identified a stock, very importantly, you should construct a portfolio. So that portfolio, try to apply the 3 basic rules. सेक्टर कैप, कौन से सेक्टर में आप इन्वेस्ट करोगे? एक सेक्टर में बहुत ज्यादा एक्सपोजर लेके फायदा नहीं है. सो कीप अ लिमिट ऑफ अ पर्टिकुलर सेक्टर. सिंगल कंपनी के ऊपर लिमिट रखो आप, एंड देन डोंट ट्राई टू हैव टू मेनी स्टॉक्स इन द पोर्टफोलियो. डोंट ट्राई टू बाय टू मेनी स्टॉक्स इन द पोर्टफोलियो and try to keep the low portfolio turnover ratio. So these are the some factors how you can implement a value investing. But a typical problem comes up, sir, we are a retail investor, हमारे पास उतना डेटा नहीं है, उतना टाइम नहीं है. अगर नहीं है तो identify, if you are a retail investor, look for a mutual fund route. There are many mutual funds which will be offering the value investing approach or the growth investing approach. I'll come up to that particular part. So look for the mutual fund route in case you are a retail investor and you don't have the time to do the research and all these background checks and everything, or portfolio construction, you can't do it. Let us go adopt a mutual fund approach, but don't try to have 10 mutual fund schemes, 20 mutual fund schemes in your portfolio. ये कोई trousers या shirts या shoes नहीं खरीद रहे तुम लोग ऐसा मतलब मेरे पास 15 स्कीम्स है, मेरे पास 20 स्कीम्स है. अरे ये क्या है पागलपन? एक स्कीम ले लिया तुमने, 2-3 टाइप के स्कीम्स ले लिया, इट्स मोर देन इनफ. 3-5 schemes is more than enough, because it mutual fund itself is a diversification. So try to, like stocks, मेरे पास 100 कंपनीज के शेयर्स है. अरे क्या फायदा क्या है? Too much of diversification is of no use. So keep this number of stocks limited in case you are going for a direct route. Indirect route, mutual fund, I told you, in case you are a high net worth individuals and you want to go for an indirect route, there are some good portfolio managers, PMS schemes, portfolio management schemes. There is something called the alternate investment funds, so you can use them. The 2 websites I'm telling you, pmsbazaar.com and pmsaifworld.com. You can use those websites for screening. This is for only high net worth individuals, minimum 50 lakh rupees and above. 50 लाख 1 करोड़ उसके ऊपर अगर आपका इन्वेस्टमेंट का नजरिया है and you want some specific themes to look out for, there is a different world for you altogether. So you can look for that. So, or otherwise, if you are a retail investor, just to go a begin up with, you can look for a passive investing approach. There are a lot of index funds in India. So far, the value ETF concept has not come up, but in the United States, there is a fund manager or AMC called the Vanguard. Vanguard has got a value fund in the US. There are some companies which are coming up with the value fund in the India also. But at now, at present, you will have a lot of ETFs. So you could find out a Nifty Next 50, Nifty Junior, popularly बोलते हैं उसको. Nifty Junior का ETF market में है. So you can look for passive investment. If you're a retail investor, you have got, let's say, 50,000 rupees, 1 lakh rupees, rather than doing all of this research and by identifying the stocks, creating a portfolio, look for a passive investment. Look for that ETF, which can allow you to put as little as 2,000 rupees, 5,000 rupees. If you're an article clerk and you are getting a stipend of 4-5,000 and you are saving about 2-3,000, look for that passive investment. Or you are a chartered accountant, you are getting, let's say, investable surplus of 30-40,000 per month. यार मेरे पास इतना टाइम नहीं है सब कुछ आइडेंटिफाई करने का. लुक फॉर द सॉल्यूशंस लाइक दिस. ETF है. और एक अच्छा सोल्यूशन है आपको अगर डायरेक्ट स्टॉक्स चाहिए तो यू कैन डू द रिसर्च ऑन योर ओन. आई एम नॉट रिकमेंडिंग एनी ऑफ द प्लेटफॉर्म्स. आई एम आस्किंग जस्ट फॉर एजुकेशनल पर्पज. आई एम शेयरिंग दिस. अल्टीमेटली यू टेक अ डिसीजन. स्मॉल केस करके कंसेप्ट है. It's a good concept that has come up. Small case is allowing you to buy the stocks directly based on some curated portfolios. There are some themes. So you can look for the themes. There are value investing themes, growth investing themes available there. So look for it. In case you don't have it, my first suggestion, directly अगर आप नहीं कर सकते, go for passive investment. That is index fund. नहीं म्यूचुअल फंड देखो, दूसरा ऑप्शन. हाई नेटवर्थ है तो PMS या AIF देखो. स्मॉल केस है. ऐसे ये टूल्स है जो आप जहां पर आपको रेडीमेड पोर्टफोलियो क्रिएट मिल सकता है. बट डोंट ट्राई टू गो फॉर अबाउट टू मेनी पोर्टफोलियो स्कीम्स. लिमिटेड रखो. So these are some of the indicators to spot the value opportunities. We already discussed a lot of these indicators already. So this is just a summary of what we discussed under value investing, and then I have 2 more slides on growth investing, and then I will take your questions. This is a concept which was coined 1992 by Morningstar. Morningstar in the US is one of the very good website for giving a research reports. In India also they have started. India maybe morningstar.com India version is there. So you can look out for. They have come up with this Morningstar investment style box, whereby like if you look at it as a graph, x-axis, they take up the investment style of the portfolio manager. It can be growth, it can be value investing, or it can be combination of the two, blend. Some people call it a blend, some people call it as a core. So there are 3 boxes. The first one right now, the box highlighted is the second one. So this is growth investment style, but the companies in which he's going to invest, the portfolio manager, is mid cap. So y-axis is the size of the companies in which you are going to invest. That can be large cap, mid cap, small cap. So based on this, you can, if you want a combination of value investing, growth investing, there are many mutual funds which you will find out in this particular fund style. ये आपको Morningstar के website पे आपको directly मिलेगा ये ऐसे reports. Don't, in case you are good in terms of understanding of mutual funds, you can look for a direct plan. अगर आपके पास वो capability नहीं तो आप distributor को या कोई advisor के पास जाओ. But rather than that, in my personal opinion, going forward, passive investing in India is going to increase substantially. Passive investing. Reason is index के जो changes थे ना, or and the companies which are coming to the markets right now, there are very innovative companies that are coming, and index changes are taking place frequently. Nifty का index change ले लो, Nifty 50, next 50 का index change ले लो, वो regularly हो रहा है. And because of which it is going to become very difficult for the fund managers to beat the index. तो अगर आप retail investor हो ना, peace of mind buy करो, index में invest करो. Index like Nifty 50 is there, Nifty Junior Bs are there, Nippon करके एक म्यूचुअल फंड है, उनका Nifty Junior Bs है, उनका Nifty Next 50 का भी है. So look for that. So वहां पर आपको ये फंड स्टाइल्स मिल जाएगा. मॉर्निंग के वेबसाइट पे आपको मिल जाएगा, या और एक वेबसाइट है वैल्यू रिसर्च के वेबसाइट पे भी आपको ये मिल जाएगा फॉर द म्यूचुअल फंड्स पोर्टफोलियोज. So this is the line I told you. Warren Buffett is the one which has followed this value investing for a very long period of time. But the very important factor which I did not explain on value investing is a patience, is a time. The other day I'd said money does not grow on trees. Money grows with time. You have to give the time to the money. म्यूचुअल फंड सही है कि कैंपेन में उन्होंने बहुत अच्छे तरीके से एक्सप्लेन किया था. यू नीड टू गिव अ टाइम. See, just like a children take a time to learn a certain language or anything, any individual takes a time. You need to give a time to your investment. You can't investments to give returns in a matter of a day or two or something. That is a trading. That is not investing. So what Warren Buffett quoted was, we don't have to be smarter than the rest of the people. We have to be more disciplined than the rest of the people. Just be disciplined. Once you identify, na chalo yaar mere ko ye passive funds mein invest karna hai, go with the passive funds. In case your income levels change dramatically, you become from retail investor, you become HNI investor, or HNI se ultra HNI ban gaye, then you can look for PMS. But to begin up with, you can think of just passive funds. डायरेक्ट स्टॉक्स रखने तो स्मॉल केस करके ऑप्शन है आपके पास. तो और अगर आपके पास रिसर्च करने का कैपेबिलिटी है तो खुद करो, और लेकिन बट नंबर ऑफ स्टॉक्स को लिमिटेड रखो. एंड द लास्ट 2 स्लाइड्स ऑन द ग्रोथ इन्वेस्टिंग. सो वैल्यू इन्वेस्टिंग में हम क्या बात कर रहे थे बेसिकली? इन वैल्यू इन्वेस्टिंग आई वाज बेसिकली टॉकिंग अबाउट बाइंग द कंपनीज below their fair value or below their underlying value. That is growth at a reasonable price. That was the theme. Whereas a growth investing is buying the companies which are likely to grow at a rate faster than the overall market or overall economy. So I'm looking for the companies which are expected to have a high growth. It could be high growth in terms of revenues, high growth in terms of cash flows. Like take a simple example, DMart. Day to day basis पे बहुत सारे लोग use करते हैं. DMart, if you see the growth rate of the DMart, forget about this lockdown period. Prior to that, number of stores that a DMart opened, or the value per store or value per square feet of the shelf space that they generated was increasing at a much faster rate. So that is a growth company. DMart is growing at a rate much faster than the nominal GDP growth rate. So growth investing is basically identifying those companies which are growing at a faster rate than the rest of the market. And then you may be willing to pay a higher price for those companies because you are paying for the future growth. You're not paying for the past growth. You are basically paying for the future growth. Like India Mart Intervesh, you could find a very high valuations right now, expensive. Growth stocks are always going to be expensive and they're going to be risky from investment perspective, because what if growth does not come? What if growth does not come? Value investing is more of a safer side. Growth investing is a more of a aggressive investments. For a growth investment, you have to look for mid cap and small cap. For a value investing, you will find a lot of opportunities of value investing in every large cap space, mid cap space. But for growth investing, yes, majority of the growth investing comes up from mid cap and small cap. The large cap, there are very few exceptions. Something like Reliance Industries has been one of the exception, or Bajaj Finance has been the exception in the large cap category, where the growth came up at a phenomenal rate in terms of RIL or Bajaj Finance for that matter. So when you look for growth investing, you need to look out for small and mid-sized companies. So these companies are typically going to reinvest their profits rather than distribute the profits to the investors by way of a dividend. And the growth rate is simply your return on equity multiplied by retention ratio. Out of your 100 rupees profit, I pay dividend of, let's say, 60 rupees. 40 rupees is my retention. So retention ratio is 40% multiplied by return on equity. That is a growth rate, the rate at which these companies grow. And this growth rate is what you are betting on. You are basically paying a higher price for the future growth. So how do I find these growth stock companies? See, the process for finding the value stocks or growth stocks is more or less similar, with just the underlying factor. In growth stocks, the factor is you are buying above the average price or buying above the median price. You are paying for the future growth. Whereas in value stocks, you are trying to buy at a reasonable price during the opportunistic time. Value buying is like Rahul Dravid. राहुल द्रविड़ क्या करता था? हर बॉल को मारने की कोशिश नहीं करता. When there is a bad delivery from the bowler, he'll try to hit. But ग्रोथ इन्वेस्टिंग के लिए वीरेंद्र सहवाग क्या होता है भाई, कोई भी बॉल आने तो मैं मतलब बॉलर का खत्म करने, मैं तो मतलब चौका छक्का लगाने के लिए बैठा हूं यहाँ पर. सो वीरेंद्र सहवाग is like a growth investing. Rahul Dravid is like your value investing. Just to give an analogy in a cricket, current cricketers I frankly don't know too much, so that's why I gave the examples of the old generation, a bit old generation. So you should look for the sales growth rate higher than the nominal GDP growth rate. The company should be able to grow its revenue, operating profits at a rate faster than the GDP growth. Then the very important factor is earnings re-rating. Like P ratio or earnings should be expected to be re-rated. Like pharma sector was re-rated after the COVID-19, and that re-rating happened, and you saw the huge explosion of the pharma sector. Or prior to 2017, around 2013 to 2017, NBFCs exploded because there is a financialization of savings. As in earlier presentation, NSDL person Sri Jain mentioned that there is a financialization of savings, and that had resulted into the explosion of NBFCs like Bajaj Finance, Ujjivan, or Bandhan becoming a bank, full-fledged bank. They exploded because that was a time when these NBFCs were re-rated completely. Or a company like Edelweiss, they were re-rated at that point of time, and then there is a downgrading in the recent past after ILFS scam. So try to find out a timing in growth investing when the companies are expected to be re-rated in the future. So once that re-rating takes place, you will have a huge value in those companies. Like personally, I think the manufacturing sector in India will be re-rated very soon once the government's efforts of Atmanirbhar Bharat will be implemented or will be seen on the ground. Or agriculture sector or agri input sector is the one where, or agri chemical sectors is one where there's a huge scope. Whatever the like whatever the farm laws government of India has introduced recently, they have a huge potential. There are long-term reforms. Yes, the process that they followed was not democratic in nature. The debate should have taken place. Opposition, farmers should have been taken into confidence. The process can be doubted, but the intention is something, okay, whatever. That's a political debate to have. But one thing is for sure, agri income is expected to rise substantially. And then I need to find out the agri sector. Agri sector could be re-rated completely, because if the corporates enter agricultural sector, that there could be re-rating. So there will be a lot of companies which will come up on the listed space in this particular part. So try to look for the companies where there will be re-rating. ROE should be higher than the expected rate. The next factor is very important: investor interest in the stock. The stock that you are going to buy, growth stock, investors should be interested in that stock for the next 4-5 years. Buyer demand बोलते हैं इसको. अब मैंने जो आपको ऐप बोला था मार्केट स्मिथ, so you can go to the market smith app and there is a buyer demand on the market smith app that you will come to know कि are institutional investors buying the stock. Institutional investors normally are not going to do the trading, like they buy the stock today and after 2-3 days they sell. वो traders नहीं होते, वो investors होते हैं for medium term or maybe long term. So is there institutional demand, investor interest? It should remain there. गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी चेंज, मैंने जैसे आपको एग्जांपल दिया मनोरमा इंडस्ट्रीज का, चॉकलेट के अंदर कितना आप कोको बटर मिक्स कर सकते हो, उसका परसेंटेज गवर्नमेंट ने अभी बढ़ा के 5% किया. इट इज एक्सपेक्टेड टू गो अप टू 10%, गॉड नोज. और इथेनॉल, इथेनॉल इज मिक्स विद द पेट्रोल. इथेनॉल का पॉलिसी है, इट इज राइट नाउ एट 10%, तो राइट नाउ एक्चुअल यूसेज इज मच लोअर देन द 10%. पेट्रोल और इथेनॉल का मिक्सिंग गवर्नमेंट ने 10% अलाउ किया है. Actual mixing is much lesser because we are not able to produce the ethanol for in a big quantity. तो गवर्नमेंट पॉलिसी ऐसा चेंज होता है तो देयर विल बी सर्टेन स्टॉक्स व्हिच विल बी बेनिफिटिंग. सो इफ देयर इज अ policy change by the government, it will help. Like I'll give just an example. With the help of the Atmanirbhar Bharat, there will be lot of contract manufacturing companies in pharmaceutical sector will be getting a big benefit. Just to name a few, Syngene करके कंपनी है, बायोकॉन का सब्सिडरी है. बायोकॉन नाम सुना होगा शायद आपने, किरण मजुमदार शॉ. So Syngene is the one which would get a benefit. Like this contract manufacturing could come up from China to other India, because government of India is right now promoting the domestic manufacturing. So look for government policy change. Identify the companies that can grow without additional capital outlay. I gave you example of IndiaMart, Naukri.com or InfoEdge. These are the companies which are platform-based companies which can grow. And avoid the companies which are showing accounting profit rather than the cash profit. Cash is the king. रोकड़ा दिखाओ. बहुत सारा कंपनीज जो अकाउंटिंग प्रॉफिट दिखाता है, जैसे मैंने आपको एग्जांपल दिया ट्री हाउस, इट्स वन ऑफ द क्लासिक एग्जांपल. स्टॉक 10 रुपए से 400 रुपए पे गया था और 400 रुपए से अभी 2-3 रुपए पे आया होगा वापस. इट इज अ बिग लेसन फॉर मी because the company was doing a bogus accounting. So cash is the king. Boss, are you able, if you are generating the profit, that profit must be converted into cash. I can understand some cash going for working capital, but I cannot understand, let's say 50-60% of the profits going in working capital. I don't want to bet on such companies. Right? That is it on this particular discussion part. I really thank you people for a patient hearing for about last 1.5 hour.